Welcome to the channel as we start another story from the Creepy Tales playlist. In the darkness, stories take shape. Some are whispered from the shadows. Others echo from places you should never go. These are the echoes of the unknown. Tales of horror, suspense, and fear that lingers. Because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones you can't explain. The ones you don't want to know exist. Let's begin. The desert stretched endlessly before Tom, his car slicing through the darkness with its dim, flickering headlights. The dashboard glowed a dull green, his fuel gauge dipping lower and lower, and his eyelids felt like lead. He'd been driving for hours, the empty highway stretching like a ribbon of shadows beneath a starless sky. No cell service. No towns. Just the cold, oppressive silence of the desert night. His eyes were beginning to droop when a flicker of light appeared on the horizon, a distant, neon glow. Relief washed over him as the sign came into focus. Last stop gas. The gas station stood alone in the desert, a cracked, weathered building with a flickering neon sign that buzzed weakly. Tom pulled in, the gravel crunching beneath his tires, the engine sputtering before falling silent. He stepped out, the cold desert air biting at his skin. The place seemed deserted, its single overhead light casting a pale, sickly glow over the empty pumps. But then from the shadows of the station's doorway, a figure emerged, a hunched, thin man with a stained baseball cap, his face hidden in shadow. "Need a fill-up?" the man asked, his voice rough and dry. Tom nodded, his own voice weak. "Yeah, please. And directions. I think I'm lost." The old man's head tilted slightly. "Lost, huh? Lot of folks get lost out here." He moved with a slow, deliberate shuffle, grabbing the pump and beginning to fill the tank. "Just remember, once you leave, you can't come back." Tom chuckled nervously, but the man's tone wasn't joking. It felt like a warning. Back on the road, Tom's initial relief turned to unease. The gas station's neon sign faded in his rearview mirror, swallowed by darkness. His phone still showed no signal, and the radio was a constant hiss of static. But worse than the silence was the road itself, an endless, twisting stretch that never seemed to change. 30 minutes passed. An hour. He should have seen a town, a rest stop, anything. But it was just the same desolate desert, stretching on forever. Panic began to claw at him as his headlights swept over the same twisted Joshua tree, the same rusted road sign that read, "Desert View, 50 miles." But the miles never seemed to count down. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, his pulse quickening. "Am I driving in circles?" he muttered, glancing at his watch. But the time hadn't changed. It was still 12:04 a.m., the exact time he'd left the gas station. Breathing faster, he turned the wheel, pulling a sharp U-turn, accelerating. But the darkness seemed to fold around him, the road bending and twisting in impossible ways. His headlights illuminated nothing but the same cracked asphalt and the same twisted trees. And then, through the darkness, the faint, flickering glow of the gas station's neon sign appeared again. The engine sputtered, and Tom's heart raced as his car slowed. "No, no, no, no," he muttered, slamming the wheel. But the dashboard lights flickered, and the car coasted to a stop. His fuel gauge plummeted, even though he just filled up. The neon sign buzzed and blinked, the letters casting a sickly green light across the desert sand. "Last stop gas." He climbed out, slamming the door, his voice cracking as he shouted. "Hello? Anyone here? Please." His words were swallowed by the cold, empty night. The gas station loomed ahead, exactly as it had before. Same peeling paint, same broken window in the corner. But this time, the attendant was nowhere to be seen. Tom's shoes crunched on the gravel as he approached the building. He pushed open the door, a faint bell chiming, though there was no one behind the counter. The air inside was stale, the shelves lined with expired food, dust gathering on the cans. The overhead light flickered weakly, and a clock on the wall was frozen at 12:04 a.m. The same time. Always the same time. Tom's breathing grew rapid, his eyes darting around the cramped, dimly lit store. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing off the dusty shelves. No answer. His phone still had no signal, the screen showing a blinking, "No service." He tried the landline behind the counter, but there was only dead silence. But something caught his eye, corkboard on the back wall, covered in yellowed, curling photographs. His stomach tightened as he stepped closer. The photos were of cars, dozens of them, all parked outside the gas station. Some were old, rusting husks he'd never seen. but others were newer models he recognized. And in each photo, a driver stood beside their car, staring directly at the camera. Some smiled, others looked confused. But one photo made Tom's blood run cold, because it was his car. Parked right outside, the neon sign glowing behind it. And he was there, staring at the camera, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. A sudden metallic clang echoed from outside. Tom spun, his heart racing. The store's front door had swung open by itself, creaking in the desert wind. Tom's legs felt like lead as he stepped out of the store, his eyes darting to his car. It was still there, but the engine was cold, and the keys felt like dead weight in his pocket. The wind picked up, dry and fierce, cutting through him. But it was more than just the cold. It was the darkness pressing in, an endless void beyond the pale light of the gas station's neon glow. He stepped further away, his flashlight trembling in his hand. The beam cut weakly through the night, revealing nothing but sand and twisted, dead brush. But as he swept the light across the desert, something shifted, a faint, dark shape moving just beyond the light's reach. "Hello," he called, but his voice seemed to die in the open air. Sweat trickled down his neck, his pulse hammering. The shape vanished, swallowed by the darkness. But then he heard it, a low, groaning creak, like a door opening. He spun and saw that the gas station door was ajar again. His flashlight flickered, and in that brief, sputtering light, he saw them, shadowy figures standing by the windows, their faces pressed against the glass, watching him. But the light died, and when it returned, the windows were empty. Panic clawed at Tom's chest. His legs trembled as he bolted to his car, fumbling with his keys. "Start. Please, just start." His voice was a desperate rasp. The engine sputtered, the dashboard flickering weakly. For a heartbeat, the engine roared to life, and a surge of relief washed over him. But just as he gripped the wheel, the engine died again, coughing out a final, hopeless sputter. "No, no, no." Tom slammed the steering wheel, his breath coming in sharp gasps. He grabbed the gas can from the back seat, his hand shaking as he splashed fuel onto the engine, hoping to spark something, anything. He flicked his lighter, the small flame dancing in the cold air, but it didn't help. Frustration turned to rage. He ran back to the gas station, banging on the door. "Let me out. Let me out." His fists pounded the glass, but the door only swung lazily on its hinges. The store was empty, the shelves coated in dust, the clock still frozen at 12:04 a.m. But when he turned, the photographs had changed, more of them now, covering the walls. His own picture was clearer, his face twisted in terror, staring directly at the camera. A chill swept over him, and he turned to see the old attendant standing by the pump, watching him with a faint, cracked smile. "Once you leave, you can't come back," the old man whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Tom's legs felt numb as he staggered toward the man, desperate. "Please, you have to help me. I'm trapped. I can't leave." The old man tilted his head, that smile never fading. "A lot of folks can't leave. Place for the lost, you see. For those who've already crossed over." "Crossed over? What are you talking about?" Tom's voice broke, tears burning in his eyes. The old man chuckled, the sound dry and rasping. "Lost souls, son. Wanderers. People who refuse to let go, even when they've gone too far." He gestured at the empty desert beyond the neon light. "But you keep coming back. Always back." Tom grabbed at the man's arm, but his fingers passed through the sleeve like mist, the fabric swirling, dissolving, then reforming. The old man's face seemed to shimmer, his eyes dark, hollow voids beneath the brim of his hat. "You're not real," Tom whispered, stumbling back. "Oh, I'm real enough for this place. Real enough for you." Tom's breath came in ragged gasps as he ran, his shoes kicking up dust. The darkness pressed closer, the wind rising, howling like a distant scream. He darted around the gas station, his flashlight flickering, the desert stretching out like a vast, empty ocean. No stars, no moon, just darkness. His car was gone. The gravel where it had sat was empty, undisturbed. He turned, sprinting along the road, but the neon sign seemed to follow him, always in the corner of his vision. No matter how far he ran, the station's sickly glow never disappeared. His legs burned, his lungs ached, but he couldn't stop. His watch was still stuck at 12:04 a.m., his phone's screen a dead black mirror. Finally, his legs buckled, and he collapsed onto the cold, rough sand. Please, please, he whispered to the empty night. But the darkness only seemed to lean closer, the wind swirling around him, carrying the faint sound of an engine rumbling, a voice crackling through static, but he couldn't make out the words. Tom opened his eyes, lying on the ground, cold and shivering. His flashlight was dead, his phone a useless brick. But the neon light was still there. Last stop gas. He forced himself to his feet, staggering back toward the station. The door was open, swinging in the wind. The store was brighter now, the photographs covering every wall, overlapping. Tom's photograph was at the center, his face pale, frozen in terror. But next to it were more photos, new faces, all staring directly at the camera, all lost. He stumbled backward, his foot catching on something. Looking down, he saw another camera, cracked and covered in dust. He picked it up, his fingers trembling. The screen flickered to life, a brief glitching image of his own horrified face before dying again. Please, I just want to go home, he whispered, his voice cracking. But as he stepped outside, the neon sign buzzed louder, and the wind stilled. His car was back, parked by the pump, headlights dim. But he didn't dare touch it. The road stretched out in both directions, but he knew there was nowhere to go. Days passed, or maybe it was just minutes. Time didn't seem to exist anymore. Tom sat on the curb by the gas pump, his eyes empty, his voice gone. He was just another shadow, another lost soul at the edge of the endless desert. Headlights appeared in the distance, growing brighter, cutting through the darkness. A new car pulled in, its tires crunching on the gravel. A young woman stepped out, stretching, looking tired but relieved. Hey, anyone here? She called out, leaning against her car. The old man stepped out from the shadows of the store, his hat tilted low. Need a fill-up? He asked, his voice dry and cracked. Tom watched, his mouth moving soundlessly, trying to scream, trying to warn her. But the words wouldn't come. He looked at the store's window, and in the faint reflection, he saw his own face staring back, twisted with despair, trapped behind the glass. The woman laughed, handing the old man her credit card. She didn't see Tom, didn't hear him. He was just a shadow now. And the desert stretched on, endless and empty, the gas station's neon sign flickering weakly. Last stop gas. Next time you're home all alone, and you hear those things that go bump in the night, sometimes they are best left alone.